Hey, you are watching AliAziz YouTube channel.
Most common interview questions and answers for fresh and experienced candidates. Part #127 Question and Answer. 1. Tell me about yourself. This question seems simple, so many people fail to prepare for it, but it's crucial. Here's the deal: don't give your complete employment or personal history. Instead, give a pitch, one that's concise and compelling and that shows exactly why you're the right fit for the job. Muse writer and MIT career counselor Lily Zhang recommends using a present, past, future formula. Talk a little bit about your current role, including the scope and perhaps one big accomplishment, then give some background as to how you got there and experience you have that's relevant. Finally, segue into why you want and would be perfect for this role. Possible answer 2. Tell me about yourself. Well, I'm currently an account executive at Smith, where I handle our top performing client. Before that, I worked at an agency where I was on 3 different major national healthcare brands. And while I really enjoyed the work that I did, I'd love the chance to dig in much deeper with one specific healthcare company, which is why I'm so excited about this opportunity with Metro Health Center. 2. Walk me through your resume. Like, tell me about yourself. This question is a common interview opener. But instead of framing your answer around what qualities and skills make you best for the position, your answer should group your qualifications by your past jobs and tell your career story. You might choose to tell this story chronologically, especially if there's a great anecdote about what set you on this path. Or, as with tell me about yourself, you can begin with your present job, then talk about what brought you here and where you're going next. But regardless, when you speak about your past and present, highlight your most relevant experiences and accomplishments for this job and wrap up by talking about the future, i.e. connect your past and present together to show why this job should be the next one you add to your resume. Possible answer 2. Walk me through your resume. Well, as you can see from my resume, I took a bit of a winding road to get to where I am today. In college, I double majored in chemistry and communications. I found early on that working in a lab all day wasn't for me, and at some point I realized I looked forward to the lab class I taught the most. 3. How did you hear about this position? Another seemingly innocuous interview question. This is actually a perfect opportunity to stand out and show your passion for and connection to the company. For example, if you found out about the gig through a friend or professional contact, name drop that person, then share why you were so excited about the job. If you discovered the company through an event or article, share that. Even if you found the listing through a random job board, share what, specifically, caught your eye about the role. Possible answer 2. How did you hear about this position? I heard about an opening on the product team through a friend of a friend, a Kiko, and since I'm a big fan of your work and have been following you for a while, I decided it would be a great role for me to apply for. 4. Why do you want to work at this company? Beware of generic answers. If what you say can apply to a whole slew of other companies, or if your response makes you sound like every other candidate, you're missing an opportunity to stand out. Zhang recommends one of 4 strategies. Do your research and point to something that makes the company unique that really appeals to you. Talk about how you've watched the company grow and change since you first heard of it. Focus on the organization's opportunities for future growth and how you can contribute to it, or share what's gotten you excited from your interactions with employees so far. Whichever route you choose, make sure to be specific. And if you can't figure out why you'd want to work at the company you're interviewing with by the time you're well into the hiring process, it might be a red flag telling you that this position is not the right fit. Possible answer 2. Why do you want to work at this company? I saw on the Muse that you were also hiring for new positions on the West Coast to support your new operations there. I did some more reading about the new data center you're building there, and that excites me, as I know this means there'll be opportunities to train new teammates. I also learned through a Wall Street Journal article that you're expanding in Mexico as well. I speak Spanish fluently and would be eager to step up and help liaise whenever necessary. 5. Why do you want this job? Again, companies want to hire people who are passionate about the job, so you should have a great answer about why you want the position. And if you don't, you probably should apply elsewhere. First, identify a couple of key factors that make the role a great fit for you. Example: I love customer support because I love the constant human interaction and the satisfaction that comes from helping someone solve a problem. Then share why you love the company. Example: I've always been passionate about education, and I think you're doing great things, so I want to be a part of it. Possible answer to why do you want this job? I've always been a fan of Xco's products and I've spent countless hours playing your games. I know that your focus on unique stories is what drew me and other fans into your games initially and keeps us coming back for more. I've followed Xco on social media for a while, and I've always loved how you have people in different departments interact with users. So I was psyched when I came across this posting for a social media manager with TikTok experience. At my last job, I was responsible for launching our TikTok account and growing it to 10,000 followers in 6 months. Between that experience, my love of gaming, and my deep knowledge of your games and fan base, I know I could make this TikTok account something special and exciting. 6. Why should we hire you? This interview question seems forward, not to mention intimidating, but if you're asked it, you're in luck. There's no better setup for you to sell yourself and your skills to the hiring manager. Your job here is to craft an answer that covers 3 things: that you can not only do the work, but also deliver great results, that you'll really fit in with the team and culture, and that you'd be a better hire than any of the other candidates. Possible answer to why should we hire you? I know it's been an exciting time for General Tech, growing so much and acquiring several startups, but I also know from experience that it can be challenging for the sales team to understand how new products fit in with the existing ones. It's always easier to sell the product you know, so the newer stuff can get shortchanged, which can have company-wide ramifications. I have over a decade of experience as a sales trainer, but more importantly, most of those years were working with sales teams that were in the exact same boat Gen Tech is in now. Growth is wonderful, but only if the rest of the company can keep up. I'm confident I can make sure your sales team is confident and enthusiastic about selling new products by implementing an ongoing sales training curriculum that emphasizes where they sit in a product lineup. 7. What can you bring to the company? When interviewers ask this question, they don't just want to hear about your background. They want to see that you understand what problems and challenges they're facing as a company or department, as well as how you'll fit into the existing organization. Read the job description closely, do your research on the company, and make sure you pay attention in your early round interviews to understand any issues you're being hired to solve. Then, the key is to connect your skills and experiences to what the company needs and share an example that shows how you've done similar or transferable work in the past. Possible answer to what can you bring to the company? As Jocelyn talked about in our interview earlier, Popco is looking to expand its market to small business owners with less than 25 employees, so I'd bring my expertise in this area and my experience in guiding a sales team that's selling to these customers for the first time. In most of my past roles, this segment has been my focus, and in my current role, I also played a big part in creating our sales strategies when the business began selling to these customers. I worked with my managers to develop the sales script. I also listened in on a number of sales calls with other account execs who were selling to these customers for the first time and gave them pointers and other feedback. In the first quarter, our 10-person sales team closed 50 new bookings in this segment, and I personally closed 10 of those deals. I helped guide my last company through the expansion into small businesses, and I'm eager to do that again at Popco. Plus, I noticed you have a monthly karaoke night, so I'm eager to bring my rendition of Call Me Maybe to the team as well. 8. What are your greatest strengths? Here's an opening to talk about something that makes you great and a great fit for this role. When you're answering this question, think quality, not quantity. In other words, don't rattle off a list of adjectives. Instead, pick one or a few, depending on the question, specific qualities that are relevant to this position and illustrate them with examples. Stories are always more memorable than generalizations. And if there's something you were hoping to mention because it makes you a great candidate, but you haven't had a chance yet, this would be the perfect time. Possible answer to what are your greatest strengths? I'd say one of my greatest strengths is bringing organization to hectic environments and implementing processes to make everyone's lives easier. In my current role as an executive assistant to a CEO, I created new processes for pretty much everything, from scheduling meetings to planning monthly all-hands agendas to preparing for event appearances. Everyone in the company knew how things worked and how long they would take, and the structures helped alleviate stress and set expectations on all sides. I'd be excited to bring that same approach to an operations manager role at a startup, where everything is new and constantly growing and could use just the right amount of structure to keep things running smoothly. 9. What do you consider to be your weaknesses? What your interviewer is really trying to do with this question, beyond identifying any major red flags, is to gauge your self-awareness and honesty. So, I can't meet a deadline to save my life is not an option, but neither is nothing. I'm perfect. Strike a balance by thinking of something that you struggle with but that you're working to improve. For example, maybe you've never been strong at public speaking, but you've recently volunteered to run meetings to help you get more comfortable when addressing a crowd. Possible answer to what do you consider to be your weaknesses? It can be difficult for me to gauge when the people I'm working with are overwhelmed or dissatisfied with their workloads. To ensure that I'm not asking too much or too little from my team, we have weekly check-ins. I like to ask if they feel like they're on top of their workload, how I could better support them, whether there's anything they'd like to take on or get rid of, and if they're engaged by what they're doing. Even if the answer is all good, these meetings really lay the groundwork for a good and trusting relationship. 10. What is your greatest professional achievement? Nothing says hire me better than a track record of achieving amazing results in past jobs, so don't be shy when answering this interview question. A great way to do so is by using the STAR method: situation, task, action, results. Set up the situation and the task that you were required to complete to provide the interviewer with background context. Example: in my last job as a junior analyst, it was my role to manage the invoicing process, then describe what you did, the action, and what you achieved, the result in 1 month. I streamlined the process, which saved my group 10 person hours each month and reduced errors on invoices by 25%. Possible answer to what is your greatest professional achievement? My greatest accomplishment was when I helped the street lighting company I worked for convince the small town of Bend, Oregon to convert antiquated street lighting to energy-efficient LED bulbs. My role was created to promote and sell the energy-efficient bulbs, while touting the long-term advantage of reduced energy costs. I had to develop a way to educate city light officials on the value of our energy-efficient bulbs, which was a challenge since our products had an expensive upfront cost compared to less efficient lighting options. I created an information packet and held local community events aimed at city officials and the tax-paying public. There, I was able to demo the company product, answer questions, and evangelize the value of LED bulbs for the long term. It was crucial to have the public on board, and I was able to reach a wide variety of community members with these events. I not only reached my first year sales goal of $100,000, but I was also able to help us land another contract in a neighboring city. Plus, the community-focused strategy garnered attention from the national media. And I'm proud to say I got a promotion within 1 year to senior sales representative. 11. Tell me about a challenge or conflict you faced at work, and how you dealt with it. You're probably not eager to talk about conflicts you've had at work during a job interview. But if you're asked directly, don't pretend you've never had one. Be honest about a difficult situation you faced, but without going into the kind of detail you'd share venting to a friend. Most people who ask are only looking for evidence that you're willing to face these kinds of issues head-on and make a sincere attempt at coming to a resolution, former recruiter Richard Moy says. Stay calm and professional as you tell the story, and answer any follow-up questions. Spend more time talking about the resolution than the conflict, and mention what you'd do differently next time to show you're open to learning from tough experiences. Possible answer to tell me about a challenge or conflict you faced at work, and how you dealt with it. Funnily enough, last year I was part of a committee that put together a training on conflict intervention in the workplace, and the amount of pushback we got for requiring attendance really put our training to the test. There was one senior staff member in particular who seemed adamant. It took some careful listening to understand he felt like it wasn't the best use of his time given the workload he was juggling. I made sure to acknowledge his concern. And then I focused on his direct objection and explained how the training was meant to improve not just the culture of the company, but also the efficiency at which we operated, and that the goal was for the training to make everyone's workload feel lighter. He did eventually attend and was there when I talked to the whole staff about identifying the root issue of a conflict and addressing that directly without bringing in other issues, which is how I aim to handle any disagreement in the workplace. 12. Tell me about a time you demonstrated leadership skills. You don't have to have a fancy title to act like a leader or demonstrate leadership skills. Think about a time when you headed up a project, took the initiative to propose an alternate process, or helped motivate your team to get something done. Then use the STAR method to tell your interviewer a story, giving enough detail to paint a picture, but not so much that you start rambling, and making sure you spell out the result. In other words, be clear about why you're telling this particular story and connect all the dots for the interviewer. Possible answer to tell me about a time you demonstrated leadership skills. I think that a good leader is someone who can make decisions while also listening to others and being willing to admit when you're wrong and course correct. In my last role, my team and I were responsible for giving a big presentation to a prospective client. I quickly assigned different tasks to members of my team, but the project never really got moving. I gave everyone an opportunity to share their input and concerns, and it turned out that they were struggling in the roles I'd given them. I ended up switching a few people around. Meanwhile, the employee I'd assigned to give the presentation was nervous, but still wanted to give it a try. I worked with them to make sure they were ready and even held a practice session so that they could rehearse in a more comfortable environment. When the time came for the real thing, they nailed it. We landed the client and the company still has the account to this day. And that employee became a go-to person for important client presentations. I'm really glad I took the time to listen to everyone's concerns so that I could reevaluate my approach and help my team be the best it could be. 13. What's a time you disagreed with a decision that was made at work? The ideal anecdote here is one where you handled a disagreement professionally and learned something from the experience. Zhang recommends paying particular attention to how you start and end your response. To open, make a short statement to frame the rest of your answer, one that nods at the ultimate takeaway or the reason you're telling this story. For example, I learned early on in my professional career that it's fine to disagree if you can back up your hunches with data. And to close strong, you can either give a one-sentence summary of your answer, in short, or talk briefly about how what you learned or gained from this experience would help you in the role you're interviewing for. Possible answer to: what's a time you disagreed with a decision that was made at work? In my job as a finance assistant, I was in charge of putting together reports for potential company investments. It was important to get the details and numbers right so that leaders had the best information to make a decision. One time, my boss asked me to generate a new report on a Wednesday morning and wanted it done by Thursday at 5 p.m. Because I'm committed to high-quality work and I wasn't sure my boss fully understood what goes into each report, I knew I needed to speak up. At her next available opening, I sat down with my boss and explained my concerns. She was firm that the report would be completed by Thursday at 5 p.m. So I decided to ask if there was anyone who could help out. After thinking about it, my boss found another assistant who could put in a few hours. While it was a tight timeline, we got the report done, and the committee was really pleased to review it at the meeting. My boss appreciated my extra efforts to make it happen, and I felt good that I hadn't let the quality of the report slip. It was a good experience of being a team player but also knowing when and how to ask for help. And once I explained how much time and work goes into each report, my boss was careful to assign them further in advance. 14. Tell me about a time you made a mistake. You're probably not too eager to dig into past blunders when you're trying to impress an interviewer and land a job. But talking about a mistake and winning someone over aren't mutually exclusive, Moy says. In fact, if you do it right, it can help you. The key is to be honest without placing blame on other people, then explain what you learned from your mistake and what actions you took to ensure it didn't happen again. At the end of the day, employers are looking for folks who are self-aware, can take feedback, and care about doing better. Possible answer to: tell me about a time you made a mistake. Early in my career, I missed a deadline that ended up costing us a really big account. There were a lot of factors that contributed to this, but ultimately, I was the one who dropped the ball. From that experience, I went back and thought really hard about what I could have controlled and what I would have changed. It turns out that I was not nearly as organized as I thought I was. I sat down with my boss, asked for suggestions on how to improve my organizational skills, and a few months later I was able to score an even bigger account for the department. 115. Tell me about a time you failed. This question is very similar to the one about making a mistake, and you should approach your answer in much the same way. Make sure you pick a real, actual failure you can speak honestly about. Start by making it clear to the interviewer how you define failure. For instance, as a manager, I consider it a failure whenever I'm caught by surprise. I strive to know what's going on with my team and their work. Then situate your story in relation to that definition and explain what happened. Finally, don't forget to share what you learned. It's okay to fail, everyone does sometimes, but it's important to show that you took something from the experience. Possible answer to: tell me about a time you failed. As a team manager, I consider it a failure if I don't know what's going on with my staff and their work. Basically, if a problem catches me by surprise, then I failed somewhere along the way. Even if the outcome is ultimately fine, it means I've left a team member unsupported at some point. A somewhat recent example would be this training we do every year for new project managers. Because it's an event that my team has run so many times, I didn't think to check in and had no idea a scheduling conflict was brewing into a full-on turf war with another team. The resolution actually ended up being a quick and easy conversation at the leadership team meeting, but had I just asked about it sooner, it would never have been a problem to begin with. I definitely learned my lesson about setting reminders to check in about major projects or events even if they've been done dozens of times before. 16. Why are you leaving your current job? This is a tough but one you can be sure you'll be asked. Definitely keep things positive. You have nothing to gain by being negative about your current employer. Instead, frame things in a way that shows that you're eager to take on new opportunities and that the role you're interviewing for is a better fit for you. For example, I'd really love to be part of product development from beginning to end, and I know I'd have that opportunity here. And if you were let go from your most recent job? Keep it simple. Unfortunately, I was let go, is a totally acceptable answer. Possible answer to why are you leaving your current job? I'm ready for the next challenge in my career. I loved the people I worked with and the projects I worked on, but at some point I realized I wasn't being challenged the way I used to be. Rather than let myself get too comfortable, I decided to pursue a position where I can continue to grow. 17. Why were you fired? Of course, they may ask the follow-up question, why were you let go? If you lost your job due to layoffs, you can simply say, the company reorganized/merged/ was acquired and unfortunately my position/department was eliminated. But what if you were fired for performance reasons? Your best bet is to be honest. The job-seeking world is small, after all. But it doesn't have to be a deal breaker. Frame it as a learning experience, share how you've grown and how you approach your job and life now as a result. And if you can portray your growth as an advantage for this next job, even better. Possible answer to why were you fired? After working for XYZ Incorporated for 4 years, there were some changes made to the amount of client calls we were expected to process per hour. I used the techniques we were taught after the change took effect, but didn't want our customer service to slip. Unfortunately, I wasn't consistently completing the required number of calls, and, as a result, I was let go. I felt really bad about this, and in retrospect I could have done better sticking to the process that would have let me meet the per hour quota. But you've told me about the customer service standards and the volume expectations here, and I believe it won't be a problem. 18. Why was there a gap in your employment? Maybe you were taking care of children or aging parents, dealing with health issues, or traveling the world. Maybe it just took you a long time to land the right job. Whatever the reason, you should be prepared to discuss the gap, or gaps, on your resume. Seriously, practice saying your answer out loud. The key is to be honest, though that doesn't mean you have to share more details than you're comfortable with. If there are skills or qualities you honed or gained in your time away from the workforce, whether through volunteer work, running a home, or responding to a personal crisis, you can also talk about how those would help you excel in this role. Possible answer to why was there a gap in your employment? I spent a number of years working at a company in a very demanding job, in which, as you'll see from my references, I was very successful. But I'd reached a stage in my career where I wanted to focus on my personal growth. The time I spent traveling taught me a lot about how to get along with people of all ages and cultures. Now I feel more than ready to jump back into my career with renewed energy and focus, and I feel this role is the ideal way to do that. 19. Can you explain why you changed career paths? Don't be thrown off by this question. Just take a deep breath and explain to the hiring manager why you've made the career decisions you have. More importantly, give a few examples of how your past experience is transferable to the new role. This doesn't have to be a direct connection. In fact, it's often more impressive when a candidate can show how seemingly irrelevant experience is very relevant to the role. Possible answer 2. Can you explain why you changed career paths? Ever since my brother was diagnosed with a heart condition, I've been training and running with him in your annual heart run to raise money for your organization and help support patients with expenses not covered by insurance. Each time, I've been struck by how truly dedicated and happy to be there your employees have been. So when I saw this posting for a fundraising role, it felt like it was meant to be. For the last 10 years of my career I've been an account executive for various SaaS companies, and I've really honed my skills when it comes to convincing organizations to make regular payments for something over the long term. But I've been looking for a position in fundraising where I can use these skills to really help people, and I'm highly motivated to do that with your organization. 20. What's your current salary? It's now illegal for some or all employers to ask you about your salary history in several cities and states, including New York City, Louisville, North Carolina, California, and Massachusetts. But no matter where you live, it can be stressful to hear this question. Don't panic, there are several possible strategies you can turn to. For example, you can deflect the question, Muse career coach Emily Liu says, with a response like, before discussing any salary, I'd really like to learn more about what this role entails. I've done a lot of research on company and I am certain if it's the right fit, we'll be able to agree on a number that's fair and competitive to both parties. You can also reframe the question around your salary expectations or requirements, see question 38, or choose to share the number if you think it will work in your favor. Possible answer 2. What's your current salary? Before discussing any salary, I'd really like to learn more about what this role entails. I've done a lot of research on company and I am certain if it's the right fit, we'll be able to agree on a number that's fair and competitive to both parties. 21. What do you like least about your job? Tread carefully here. The last thing you want to do is let your answer devolve into a rant about how terrible your current company is or how much you hate your boss or that one coworker. The easiest way to handle this question with poise is to focus on an opportunity the role you're interviewing for offers that your current job doesn't. You can keep the conversation positive and emphasize why you're so excited about the job. Possible answer 2. What do you like least about your job? In my current role, I'm responsible for drafting media lists to pitch. While I've developed a knack for this and can do it when it is necessary, I'm looking forward to a job that allows me to have a more hands-on role in working with media partners. That's one of the things that most excited me about your account supervisor position. 22. What are you looking for in a new position? Hint: ideally the same things that this position has to offer. Be specific. Possible answer 2. What are you looking for in a new position? I've been honing my data analysis skills for a few years now and, first and foremost, I'm looking for a position where I can continue to exercise those skills. Another thing that's important to me is the chance to present my findings and suggestions directly to clients. I'm always very motivated by being able to see the impact of my work on other people. And I'm definitely looking for a position where I can grow since I hope to take on managerial responsibilities in the future. To sum it up, I'd love a position where I can use my skills to make an impact that I can see with my own eyes. Of course, the position is only part of the equation. Being at a company where I can grow and work towards something I care about matters, too. DNF's goal of being at the intersection between data and education inspires me, and I'm really excited about this opportunity. 23. What type of work environment do you prefer? Hint: ideally one that's similar to the environment of the company you're applying to. Be specific. Possible answer to what type of work environment do you prefer? I really like the environment in my current position. My manager is a great resource and always willing to help out when I run into an issue, but they trust me to get my work done, so I have a lot of freedom in how I schedule and prioritize, which is very important to me. Everyone has their own cubicle, so it's often pretty quiet to get our work done, but we all get lunch together and our team has a lot of check-in meetings and communicates frequently via Slack, so we still get a lot of opportunities to bounce ideas off each other. So I like both individual and more collaborative work. How would you describe the mix here? 24. What's your work style? When an interviewer asks you about your work style, they're probably trying to imagine you in the role. How will you approach your work? What will it be like to work with you? Will you mesh well with the existing team? You can help them along by choosing to focus on something that's important to you and aligns with everything you've learned about the role, team, and company so far. The question is broad, which means you have a lot of flexibility in how you answer. You might talk about how you communicate and collaborate on cross-functional projects, what kind of remote work setup allows you to be most productive, or how you approach leading a team and managing direct reports. Just try to keep it positive. And remember, telling a story will almost always make your answer more memorable. Possible answer to what's your work style? I tend to do my best work when I'm collaborating with colleagues and we're working together toward a common goal. I was that rare student who loved group projects, and now I still get a rush of excitement when I'm planning marketing campaigns with a team and bringing new and different voices into the fold. When I was working at XYZ agency, I made it a habit to extend invitations to folks in different departments to join certain brainstorming and feedback sessions. Some of our most successful campaigns grew out of the ideas we generated together with coworkers in IT, HR, product, and customer success. That's why I was so excited to learn that this role would have me working closely with the product and sales teams as well as with a talented marketing team. The other thing I find is crucial to making these collaborations successful is organization and documentation, so I'm also really big on creating one central home for all materials related to a project, including meeting notes, action items, drafts of campaign copy and visuals, and timelines. 25. What's your management style? The best managers are strong but flexible, and that's exactly what you want to show off in your answer. Think something like, while every situation and every team member requires a bit of a different strategy, I tend to approach my employee relationships as a coach. Then share a couple of your best managerial moments, like when you grew your team from 5 to 15 or coached an underperforming employee to become the company's top salesperson. Possible answer to what's your management style? Management style is so hard to put your finger on, but I think in general a good manager gives clear directions and actually stays pretty hands-off, but is ready and available to jump in to offer guidance, expertise, and help when needed. I try my best to make that my management style. I also go out of my way to make sure I know when my team needs help. That means plenty of informal check-ins, both on the work they're doing and on their general job satisfaction and mental well-being. I remember one project in particular at my most recent position that involved everyone working on a separate aspect of the product. This meant a lot of independent work for my team of 7 people, but rather than bog everyone down with repetitive meetings to update me and everyone else on progress made, I created a project wiki that allowed us to communicate new information when necessary without disrupting another team member's work. I then made it my job to make sure no one was ever stuck on a problem too long without a sounding board. Ultimately, despite the disparate project responsibilities, we ended up with a very cohesive product and, more importantly, a team that wasn't burnt out. 26. How would your boss and co-workers describe you? First, be honest. Remember, if you make it to the final round, the hiring manager will be calling your former bosses and co-workers for references. Then try to pull out strengths and traits you haven't discussed in other aspects of the interview, such as your strong work ethic or your willingness to pitch in on other projects when needed. Possible answer to: how would your boss and co-workers describe you? Actually, in my most recent performance review in April, my direct supervisor described me as someone who takes initiative and doesn't shy away from hard problems. My role involves a lot of on-site implementation, and when things go wrong, it's usually up to me to fix it. Rather than punting the problem back to the team, I always try to do what I can first. I know she appreciates that about me. 27. How do you deal with pressure or stressful situations? Here's another question you may feel the urge to sidestep in an effort to prove you're the perfect candidate who can handle anything. But it's important not to dismiss this one, i.e., don't say, "I just put my head down and push through it," or, "I don't get stressed out." Instead, talk about your go-to strategies for dealing with stress, whether it's meditating for 10 minutes every day or making sure you go for a run or keeping a super detailed to-do list, and how you communicate and otherwise proactively try to mitigate pressure. If you can give a real example of a stressful situation you navigated successfully, all the better. Possible answer to: how do you deal with pressure or stressful situations? I stay motivated by thinking about the end result. I've found that even in the midst of a challenging situation, reminding myself of my goals helps me take a step back and stay positive.